We know how this goes. You click in the DMC2 video, I complain about how this is the worst thing to ever happen to the franchise, we agree that it is a mess, laugh about it, and then the video ends. That's how everything related to this game tends to be. Even I have been guilty of this in the past. Except DMC2, you suck. Because who cares? Everyone hates this game, right? Well, I don't. Listen, the game is bad, and I'm not here to convince you that it's actually some kind of hidden masterpiece ahead of its time or something like that. No. I played the game, and I can tell you, it's got the reputation it has for a reason. Nothing I say in this video is to try and excuse the problems this sequel has. It's just that, unlike most people apparently, I actually think the game has a lot of interesting and sometimes cool things that don't get brought up when discussing about it. So I wanted to do exactly that. Today I'm going to take you through a journey to see all the interesting things that made me appreciate this game, even if only a little bit. Let's start from the beginning. This doesn't work. As well as they say. Except for times it does work, which are actually a big chunk of the game. If you have heard basically anything about this game, you'll know that there's this recurring notion that the guns are so overpowered there's no point in fighting up close. And this is true, but only to a certain extent. Yes, guns are strong, but they don't deal insane damage that destroys enemies in an instant. Unless you're in DT, in that case the damage is truly insane and destroys enemies in an instant. In your average combat setting, guns aren't all that strong. They only seem like the best choice because melee combat is the worst it has been in the entire series, with the arguable exception of current peak of combat. Attacks in this game are slow and sometimes uncomfortable to use, so people default to shooting everything they see until it dies. And again, that's another problem I can deny. The combat system is not very good. The basic combos aren't bad, but they are performed by inputting a direction in the middle of the combo, instead of the usual pausing between attacks, which throws a lot of people off. Stinger is slow and barely covers any distance, and all of those things make it really difficult to enjoy this game like any other DMC game. But you know what? Maybe you don't have to. What made me enjoy the combat of this game more was playing it as if it was a game from a different franchise entirely. More specifically, Batman: Arkham Asylum. I am not very familiar with this series. I've only played a small portion of the first game, but that was enough to get me engaged in its combat system. These games aren't about being stylish and comboing enemies until your fingers start asking for mercy. Here instead, you try to fight as efficiently as possible, with every attack you throw out being carefully planned to defeat the enemies without wasting any energy, the same way Batman would fight. If you throw an attack and miss, your combo counter drops to 0 and you have to start building up again, which is particularly annoying when you have moves that you can only use after facing a certain number of hits. It's a very cool system that really gets to shine in the combat challenges where, to get the highest scores, you have to fight almost flawlessly, as even getting hit once or missing an attack can be the difference between getting the gold medals or having to try again until you perfect your fighting abilities. And okay, cool, but what does this have to do with DMC2? Well, in this game the style meter is a lot less friendly than in the rest of the franchise. It disappears way too quickly. If you miss 1 or 2 attacks you probably lost your style by that point. And if it does run out, you have to start building up again from 0. See the similarities? I started to play this game trying to keep my style up for as long as possible, and it actually becomes quite interesting. I use my melee weapons to combo enemies and be cool as this game lets you, trying to never miss an attack because if I did, all of my style would be gone. My guns became my tools to keep my style and hit enemies whenever they were too far, and my dodges were used as a quick way to try to approach enemies and close the distance. It became a strategic game where I tried to beat enemies without messing around too much, or else I could lose all of my style, which seems surprisingly fitting for this version of Dante in particular. It got even better when I threw DT into the mix. This game has one of my favorite versions of Devil Trigger, period. On top of the standard buff in stats it gives you like in the other games, it also gives you different versions of every single one of your melee attacks, with some of them being entirely unique moves. And it also can be enhanced in different ways with the hard amulets, letting you choose between things like the elemental affinity attacks, I don't know how important this is but still, passive buffs like better damage or healing, and improvements to your movement like some crazy fast running speed or the ability to fly, making it the most customizable it has ever been. And this is all without factoring the Magi in DT, your other form, which you can only use by transforming when Dante is at low health. It has a unique moveset that makes you invincible until it ends. It didn't come up very often in my playthrough, but it's another layer to the gameplay that helps to add some variety, and it's also the precursor of what we would eventually see with DMC5's Sin Double Trigger, where it will have a better condition for activation, because only being able to activate it when you're about to die is very restrictive, and be more integrated in your general gameplay. But as a first step, the MC2's version isn't too bad. And that's all about the gameplay. Wait, I feel like I'm forgetting something. Nah, I already covered everything important Dante has. There's nothing else that I could... Oh, yeah, Lucia. People tend to ignore Lucia to the point that I've seen a lot of fans not even knowing she exists. Which is funny, to not say sad. Story-wise, she's more important than it seems, and I'll get to that, but gameplay-wise... I can see why a lot of people don't bother with her. She feels worse than Dante in some ways, but she's decently fun in her own right. She fights with daggers instead of swords, and even then she uses a lot of kicks for her moves, which makes her very unique among other characters in the franchise. And when others use different swords and pistols, Lucia instead relies on more archaic tools like the knives and bombs she uses for guns. Which, speaking of, her guns are worse than Dante's. Not only are they slower and feel a little more situational, but also one of those weapons is only usable underwater, which brings out many questions. The most important one being, why does this game have underwater levels? She also only has one double trigger, but it's at least as fun and customizable as the one from our other character. In general, she fits the weaker but faster role in this game. This is supported by the main thing she has over Dante, her jumps. No, seriously. She has this quirk where her jumps during lock-on are not the same as the jumps she does when she's not locking onto anyone. These lock-on jumps, to give them a name, have a lot more horizontal movement, and when you attack, you do a different aerial combo than when you jump normally. In this alternate combo, she takes a big leap forward, being able to close the distance with enemies better than with any other tool she has, and just giving her good aerial movement in general. Which completely baffles me, because this mechanic is entirely unique to her. Dante doesn't have this lock-on jump or anything of the sort to compensate. They made an entire mechanic that only Lucia will have access to. I guess they were really looking for a way to separate her from our white-haired protagonist, and I think they succeeded. With this, they established Lucia as a more agile character and a more jump-oriented playstyle than Dante's ground combat, so I guess it wasn't all bad after all. Oh, and yeah, Trish is playable too. She has a copy of Insta 1 Dante's Sparta moveset with a little bit of Ifrit thrown in between for when you don't have the Sparta with you. She's very fun and is the best playable character of this game by mere fact of not being designed in this game. She's your pick if you want to play this entry like a more traditional DMC game. And okay, I can find ways to make the playable cast somewhat interesting, but there's no way I could do the same with the enemies. Well, you're right. I'm sorry, but the enemies of this game are a whole bunch of nothing. Their designs aren't memorable and their attacks aren't doing much better either. There wasn't a single enemy that I felt strongly about. No one that I really enjoyed fighting, no one that I really hated fighting, just nothing. The only times I had to switch my strategy was against flying enemies because they were a little more annoying to combo and keep my style. Aside from them, I fought every enemy basically the same way throughout the entire game. The ones that shake things up were the bosses, for both good and bad reasons. Sometimes. Before I say anything, yes, I know the memes, haha, funny helicopter boss fight who is almost single-handedly the reason so many people complain about guns being the only way to play the game. Yes, I see you. But seriously though, this game's bosses are infamous and honestly, to me they are just forgettable. No, seriously, I beat the game recently with both characters, but I can't remember what half of the bosses even do. I'm not exaggerating. I'm mostly going to cover the ones that really stood out in my mind. So we gotta start with the Infested Chopper. The Infested Chopper is probably the most recognizable boss here, and it's not for good reasons. He's almost always just flying above you while it shoots you and sometimes fires missiles at you. That's it. To beat it, your best option is just staying down, mashing the guns until you deal enough damage to kill it. You can use your melee attacks, but it's so risky and annoying that you might as well just shoot it until it's over. You can combo it, you can't escape it. Arius is whatever, he's always sitting somewhere waiting for his minions to do all the work, occasionally using some attacks or teleporting to a different place for you to chase him down again. That's it, there isn't much here. Trismagia has the same problems as the Chopper. It's always flying away from you, firing magic attacks and only occasionally getting close to you. So again, Best strategy, just stay away messenger guns, and save all of your DT for when the 3 heads fuse. Attack them then and you will deal massive damage. Repeat until the torture is over. First form Argosax is the worst boss of this game. He's an amalgam of previous bosses, a lot of which were more forgettable than him, with a ton of health that you defeat by destroying all of its heads? Limbs? Destroying all of its parts. He doesn't move, he just stands there waiting for you to get in range of one of its parts to start spamming the same 2 moves over and over again. It's not really difficult to understand its patterns, it's just that the fight is so inexplicably long that every mistake you make starts to add up until you eventually die. It was a really frustrating boss, and definitely the worst part of the game for me. Nothing else came even close to it. And that's kind of it as far as my opinions about the bosses go. I'm sorry if you wanted a more detailed breakdown of each one of them, but most of them aren't anything to write home about. A lot of them are just big monsters that stand still in one place trying to hit you while you just mash your standard combo and destroy their health bar. The most memorable one to me is Bolverk, because he feels the most like an actual rival here. He attacks you physically, moves a decent amount, and offers a decent challenge without falling into painful territory, unlike others here. I just wish his wolves weren't present for the entire fight, because they do get a little annoying after a while. Bruh. And I think that's all about the gameplay, but this game has other interesting things I need to mention. The visuals, let's make it simple. The character designs are okay, Dante looks alright, Lucia is cool as hell, surprisingly memorable for someone from this game. Arius for what he is isn't bad, and Matier is Matier. The enemies are, as I said, not very interesting. The bosses are a mixed bag, with some interesting looking ones like Bolverk, True Argosax, and even Possessed Arius, but then other of the others are just as bland and forgettable as some of the standard enemies. And the environments aren't doing that much better. At the beginning of the game you go to different locations that, even if they aren't the most beautiful looking places, at least they are unique. But around halfway through the story, the locations started to look less and less interesting, until eventually I just didn't care anymore. Via de Marley, the island where this game takes place, really fails in establishing itself as a memorable setting, unlike the great locations of the rest of the franchise like the Temeng Negru, the City of Fortuna, or the Limbo in general. The music though, that's the thing this game really has going for it. It has some pretty good tracks, especially the battle themes. They are really good and the most memorable song from this game, since this entry doesn't have a main theme song like future installments in the franchise would have. They even gave Trish her own character theme, something not even DMC4 bothered to do. And finally, one of the most criticized aspects of the game, the story. Everyone says this is a boring story that you can skip because it doesn't affect anything in the later games either way. And I hate that that's pretty much true. The story really isn't anything too crazy. There's this bad guy called Arius who wants to become a god basically, so Dante has to stop him. That's kind of it really, not much happens in this game. Because of this, the rest of the franchise makes a giant effort to try and reference anything but this game. The only time it got any kind of acknowledgement was in the DMC5 novel, where we see what happened in the island after the game's ending and get to spend some more time with Lucia, but that's it. DMC5, Peak of Combat, and the Netflix show all make sure to add references and characters from every part of the franchise except for the second game. Well, actually the Netflix anime has Lucia and Arius cameos. That's something. I know this is the black sheep of the series and nobody likes anything that came from it, but how could they if none of those things ever get a second chance? Nero wasn't the most popular character around back in the DMC4 times, but then DMC5 came along and everyone started liking him a lot more. Same with Force Edge. It was a pretty ignored weapon in DMC1, all things considered, but then DMC3 gave it to Virgil and it became a staple of his arsenal. The same could happen with this game. Bring Lucia back, even if it's just for gameplay purposes, and I can guarantee you that a lot more people will start liking her.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer? Huh?
But really, the main thing people don't like about this game's story is the main character itself, Dante. He doesn't feel like Dante at all.
Whatever.
Instead of being this cool and fun devil hunter that toys with his enemies, he's this cold and quiet person that deals with things fast and straight to the point. Which I would really like if it wasn't a new character, because I find it really cool. He plays the hero of few words archetype while also working as a sort of mentor to Lucia, motivating her to continue in her lowest moments and inspiring her to defeat the evil that threatens her home. The dialogue isn't anything crazy, but for what it is, it's an interesting dynamic. that gives Dante something interesting to do aside from just defeating the bad guy. That's all he would have otherwise. He doesn't really develop, but I can kind of forgive it since he's at least helping Lucia develop. But again, the main problem with this is that this is Dante, but only in the name. The way he acts and the things he says just don't feel coherent with anything else we've seen from him. He can get serious, but that's always in important moments in the games. He's never this quiet for so long for basically no reason. Fans say he's depressed after losing Virgil again, and I could believe that if there was any hint of this throughout the story. But there isn't. If he's really depressed, I would like to see some of that. At least give me a cutscene showing that Dante is affected by what happened in the previous game and that's why he behaves like this. Because it feels really pointless having Dante being so different if they aren't going to do anything interesting with it. Also, since Dante's so serious now, this game doesn't have a lot of this. This.
You will fumble the opposition of my quest.
Or even this.
The son of Sparta who challenges the darkness for this.
Block off, Featherface, or you can stick around and find out the hard way.
But you know what it does have? This.
I was going to be the king of this world.
King? Yeah. Here's your crown.
This.
Devils never cry.
And this made me realize the most important thing about this game. This is not a Dante story. This is Lucia's story. Her journey is one of self-acceptance. She starts the game thinking she's some form of human and demon hybrid trying to protect the island, but that belief and her own world quickly fall apart when she realizes she's an artificial demon created by Arius.
She merely found you when you were about to be disposed of.
She's actually a monster that one day might turn against the people she cares about. She tries to take matters into her own hands and kill Arius, but she fails. Thanks to her, he gets all the things she was trying to protect.
No!
She failed in doing the one thing she was trying to accomplish. She's not the guardian she thought she was. She's not as strong as she should. She's not even sure if she's a real person or if she has a family anymore. Thankfully, Mattia arrives and tells her that family aren't the ones that share the same blood as you, but the ones that you love and have a strong connection with. So even if she isn't tied to her, she's her family.
You are my daughter.
Despite this and her efforts to stop Arius, she can't stop thinking about what he told her.
Even you will betray your upbringing and turn on the humans.
So she asks Dante to put an end to this once and for all. She asks him to kill her.
Kill me and everything will be over.
He refuses, obviously, and when she starts breaking down, he tells her something that she will never forget. Devils never cry. With this, she finds the resolve she needed to accept herself and the strength to face off against Arius and kill him, putting an end to his terrible plans once and for all.
Dante told me. Devils never cry!
And I really like this story. It might not be anything impressive, and it has some problems like pacing. Other things happen way too quickly, or characters lacking more interactions with each other, but still, the basis of this story is quite emotional and a fitting part of this franchise. She carries the themes of family and humanity the series is known for, showing that even if you are born to bring pain and suffering into this world, you can still do the right thing. You only need to have the will to do so. Maybe I'm seeing something that isn't there with this story or even the game in general, giving it credit for things that aren't really there. But I don't care. This story and the game by extension have good things in them. Small things that, with more care and time, could and have been the basis for great things, which is most apparent with a lot of the gameplay aspects. The gun moves were used for Gunslinger, the dodge button served as the precursor of Trickster, the Majin DT inspired SDT, Bloody Palace became a current mode in the series, Trish's gameplay style being recreated in DMC4, and much more. The game may be a mess, but even if it's the worst thing to ever come out of the franchise, it still has good things in it. Enough for it to be the DMC game that I couldn't hate. Thanks for watching. Oh, and maybe I was being too harsh against First Form Margosax. There's no way he's that bad. Motherfucker.